Afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for all having me here today. It's a pleasure to be around such a great group of people. First, let me start off by saying I hope everyone is staying safe, wishing everyone during these times all the best. And inshallah, once this is all over, I'll be honored to meet you all in person, inshallah. For today, what I was talking to Faisal about, what I may discuss is my background is in technology mainly, and mainly advising companies on digital transformation, which means basically I've spent my entire career, 13 years, basically advising businesses and board of directors on how to adopt technologies within their businesses. So what I wanted to elaborate a little bit about is first, kind of what we're doing right now here in Bahrain at ABC and Ella within the digital space. And then what I'm going to talk about a little bit is how we've seen consumer behavior across different verticals. And I see, based on the names that we have here today in the meeting, several industries being represented. So I'm going to talk about how we've seen consumer purchase behaviors change within several verticals. And then what I wanted to spend on is basically how business people, whether you're a board member, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you have your own business, what kind of questions should you be asking yourself when it comes to digital disruption and technology? So if you'd allow me, I just want to share my screen. So I'm just going to start off with what I'm doing currently right now. And please, by all means, stop me. I'll try to make this short, around 15 minutes of the discussion. So what we have here at Bank ABC, what we've launched recently in the last 4 months, is basically a bank called Ella. The name of the bank, Ella, represents the Arabic word towards, Ella, which basically symbolizes the journey that we envision that we are going to take our customers, both personal, individual retails, and businesses in the future. Basically, this bank was built by, let's call it, a bunch of young Bahrainis and complemented by also other nationalities across the world. The bank took us around 2 years to build from scratch. The journey started early 2017, where Bank ABC kindly decided to adopt this idea to launch this basically full mobile-only bank from Bahrain, headquartered in Bahrain, with basically regional ambitions. The journey started in, let's say, April of 2017. The team was assembled. Currently, the team is made out of 60 people. 80% of the team is Bahraini. 20% is made out of 35 different nationalities from all over the world, based in Bahrain and globally. Actually, it's nice to see that you guys are using Zoom. We've actually been, funny enough, using such technologies for the last 2 years in order to build this bank with our global footprint. We actually employ people from all over the world, the Netherlands, Turkey, Serbia, Hungary, who all work remotely within the Ella, let's call it, team. The logo that we've gone with is basically banking that reflects you. We spent a lot of time working with different people in the community in Bahrain, asking them about their banking pain points. So some of the things that were mentioned, I don't want to visit a branch to open an account. I want to do all my first services digitally. And basically what we've created is an end-to-end platform that you can use from the comfort of your house, from the moment you open up an account till the moment you transact or order even a card. It's all done digitally. Is this innovative? it is innovative right now within the Bahraini community, but we are basically catching up to other technologies that are being deployed here in the GCC and around MENA. Additionally, what I wanted to also just go into a little bit is just kind of our services. To open up a bank account, all you need is a basically selfie and two basically forms of ID. It's basically the CPR or passport and national ID. What we currently offer is basically our MVP that we launched with is a multiple currency account. So from the moment you onboard, you can open up an account in a Bahraini dinar, USD, British pounds, euro, and all the GCC currencies. What we found out is basically in the last 4 months since we're launched, we've had really good traction, alhamdulillah. In the first 4 months, we've actually deployed more than 10,000 customers, which is quite a good number for us. And it's been like, let's say, overwhelming. So the successes have been great. And what we aspire, just to let you guys know, is we really are trying to represent Bahrain in the best way possible when it comes to the financial services industry. We've already been approached by other GCC countries to launch within their ecosystem. So luckily enough, inshallah, within the next 4 or 5 months, even within this whole COVID situation, because what we've built is basically all our systems are within the cloud, let's call it. So it's very easy for us to scale both by numbers and geographically. So we'll be taking, inshallah, these technologies up next to Jordan, Egypt, and another 2 GCC countries within the next, let's call it 6 to 8 months, inshallah. So that's it, just to give you an idea of basically who I am and what ILA represents. What I wanted to spend time a little bit about, and that's the topic that Faisal kindly mentioned that people are interested in, is how we're seeing basically consumer behavior getting disrupted within the, let's call it, because of technology, here in Bahrain and throughout. What I wanted to start off with is just like high-level numbers, just to give you a little bit of a perspective of kind of what's happening globally when it comes to the world of technology and digital. 51%, according basically to the World Bank statistics, 51% of the world use data, whether it's from the mobile or the watch or an iPad or the computer. On average, 51% of the world use the internet daily. As of end of 2019, 7 out of the 10 most valuable companies by market cap in the world are technology companies. E-commerce represents around percent of retail sales globally. That's B2C, business to consumers, and B2B. And in terms of a statistic that I find always amazing is, according to the World Bank too, people in first world countries are spending 6.3 hours a day on average consuming what they call digital media. Digital media could be using Netflix, could be using an app on your phone. So around 6.3 hours per day are being spent on consuming digital media. In terms of where we have seen technology disrupting consumer behavior, and these are trends that we actually in the financial services field follow really closely. So I'll start off by saying number one thing to really pay attention to is what we've noticed is customer attention is decreasing. Why is that important? It's because a lot what technology has provided is for consumers a lot of increased choices. So customers have an abundance of information online. So why is that important? What we suggest and advise our, let's call it, creating a strong brand loyalty to ensure consistent engagement online is very, very, very important. Number two, consumers expect personalization. And what that means is, imagine, let's call it just a random guy, Mohamed Ahmed in Bahrain, sitting in his house in Bidayah. if he's consuming digital media, so if he's on social media and he's going through his Instagram and he has a loyalty to a certain, let's call it restaurant, he's gonna expect on his mobile to consume ads that are personalized and targeted towards him. And this is very, very, very popular right now. And people were noticing, expect it all the time. Number 3, ease of access to information. According to statistics, 61% of customers throughout the world, it might be obviously less than the GCC, but 61% of customers use search engines such as Google, Yahoo, or even social media to aid them in research before making a decision to purchase. So imagine if someone is in a shopping mall and he's considering, let's say, buying, a gadget, or considering buying maybe a new piece of furniture. 61% of the time, the consumer would go on to a search engine and search that good before buying it, which means for business owners, making sure information around you and your product is available digitally very easily. Brand loyalty and customer stickiness is actually at an all-time low right now. Due to online purchasing and the ability for you to consume things digitally, it has become a lot more easier for customers to research new brands and new products and switch. And what we've noticed too, through statistics too, is that 90% of customers say that positive reviews online, whether it's in blogs, social media, LinkedIn, affect decision-making. So that's important for business owners to ensure that they are continuously monitoring, let's call it the digital realm, to ensure that the reviews and customer, let's say, feedback are being addressed. Number 5, customer expectations have completely gone up when it comes about the customer experience. People want catered services all the time that are on one platform. And I'll use, I call it the weather forecast analogy. Let's call it 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, many of us would hear the weather forecast probably in the news. And you would say, okay, Bahrain today morning, you'll hear the news today is like 25 degrees, it might rain. But what's happening right now, due to the availability of catered apps and mobile, the questions that you're asking right now is, will it rain between 4 to 5 p.m.? How's the weather between 4 to 5 p.m.? So that's the analogy I'm going to use to show that customer expectations from the business owner in terms of delivering information and delivering service has gone up completely. Number 6, the need for a good customer experience is increasing. Customers do not want just to buy a product. They want to have a great customer experience or a great customer service. So let me give you guys an example that I go through every day here at the bank. A lot of my customers share their feedback, positive or negative, on social media channels. And most of the commentary do not talk about, complain about the rates or the charges that I'm charging them for making a transfer, whether it's an international remittance or making a local transfer. What they complain about most of the time is customer service, customer experience. And you will find, on average, that your customers, if you own like basically a B2C business, they are 3 more negative customer experience than a positive one online. So it's quite important for you, again, and this is personally what I spend my time as a CEO of the bank here, is really focusing on listening to the customers through the digital channels, whether it is social media, whether it's blogs, whether it's even digital news. And then I say, people expect to make purchases from their mobile and comfort of their homes. And I think more than ever now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic situation, we've noticed that there's a lot of shift of businesses moving to online, let's call it e-commerce and online delivery. But this trend has happened, I think, for me along probably catching up, like the whole pandemic has, let's say, increased the velocity of people transforming to go into online channels, but people expect that. Even if it's B2B businesses, what we've noticed is a lot of our business clients too are consuming and let's say interacting and transaction all online with other businesses. So that's the last point here. I just want to give you guys an example of why the digital field is so important. This is, I work a lot on marketing things digitally. So I just want to give you guys an example of how big of a reach digital allows you to get as a business. So I work a lot with Google, and I work a lot with Google to ensure that my brands are being represented really well in the digital field. So I'll just give you guys an example for Bahrain. If you want to reach 350,000 unique people in Bahrain, no matter what age they are, okay, you might need to spend on YouTube, for example, 20,000, and you'll be able to reach 350,000 unique people. These are statistics coming from Google directly on Bahrain. If you want to reach 571,000 people, again, unique people in Bahrain that have, let's call it, an IP address in Bahrain, whether it's a mobile phone, whether it's a computer, you need to spend around 10,000 marketing dollars on Google Display, and they will guarantee you a reach of 570,000 unique people. This is not to say that this is the right thing to do for any business, but I think what this shows you is that the reach of digital channels has become so prominent and in a sense much cheaper than the traditional field. So for a business, using these digital channels can give you the option of reaching a lot more people for a lot cheaper. And I think now more than ever during the whole COVID situation and maybe what happens after COVID, digital spend is going to increase a lot. Now I want to go to basically the questions that people should be asking. If you're a board member, if you own a business, if you want to invest in a business, what kind of questions you may want to ask when it comes to technology and digital strategy. For me, having a digital strategy in your pillars is quite important. And you'll see that globally, a lot of C-level executives and board members and companies globally talk about digital, talk about technology, talk about how technology is disrupting their businesses, how it's helping them, how it's negatively affecting them, how it's changing the way their consumers are behaving. So I just want to share like some high-level statistics. So 50% of C-level executives around the world see digital transformation as a top priority for the next 2 years. And let me just say that these numbers that I'm sharing with you guys all come from a report that's end of 2019. So it doesn't include what's happening right now from the COVID situation. 63% of executives fear losing customers if the company does not rapidly embrace digital. 50% of annual company revenue across the world comes from products and services that were launched in the last 3 years that are digital. And then 52% of C-level executives and board members across the world say that digital technology will transform their business. Another few just statistics for you. Digital spend in terms of, let's call it, whether you want to call it marketing spend, CapEx spend, operational spend, globally has increased 18% from 2018 to 2019. And that's the chart I have where it says annual increase in spend in IT and digital. IT is 2%, digital is 18%. You might say, Mohammed, what's the difference between IT and digital? IT is basically what we all know about, which is the basic IT that we have probably in our businesses. It's coming up with the team that maintains your emails, your Wi-Fi, your internet. That's what IT represents. But what digital represents is really digital in terms of your products. Are you moving online? Are you using digital or technology to help you improve your operational, let's say, processes in the background? And that's what digital represents. So you'll see that people are spending a lot more money on digital than your typical IT. It's estimated that by 2022, $2 trillion will be spent around the world on specifically digital transformation throughout companies. The highlighted thing in red is just to give you an example of what I say. People always think technology will affect financial services, retail services, maybe F&B, but I like to use this statistic because it shows you that even industries that you didn't think would be disruptive are disruptive. So for example, transportation, and that means parking, mobility, cars, is ranked number 3 in terms of digital spend. It's even above retail and financial services globally. Just to give you some idea of why this is important, I'll cater to the page on the right side of the page. So high-level statistics in the last 2 years say that if you really focus on digital and transforming your businesses and, let's say, adapting to technologies, probably a lot of these companies have had almost on average 44% higher revenue growth. And let me say this, it doesn't apply to everyone. These are statistics from a high-level point of view. People assume that 10 to 15% of your operational costs could go down if you adopt and improve your back-end processes digitally. If you're a business that is highly dependent on customer acquire, so you're always required to, let's call it, grow and increase your customer base, digital spend and digital ways of attracting your customers can help you grow on average by 15% if you find the right mix. Okay, investors in general, so if you're a business that's looking to have investors invest in you, or you have a business that's publicly listed and you want to basically have investment money in you, it is said that your chance of having a better chance of getting an investment or a future higher valuation is 48% when you show an investor that you are adopting digital technologies in your business. Okay, so now let's say if you're a C-level executive or if you're a board member, what can you be asking yourself to start off with? Like, I meet a lot of people that tell me, Mohamed, we don't know where to start. How can I start when I talk about like digital? There's just so much to do. Where can I start? These are some questions that, and I'll be happy to share this presentation with all of you. Basically, it's like, first you start off as like, what opportunities and threats does digital pose to our business? How effective are we today compared to our competitors? What digital experiences do our customers want? And when I say customers, again, I'll just emphasize, these are both B2B businesses and B2C businesses. What should our digital strategy be? What's the business case for change? What budgets will I need to support the digital strategy? And this question is probably the most debated question I've seen. What is the budget that I need to get started? How do I get started? How should we organize? How should we reward ourselves for digital success? These are all questions I think that are fair that you can be asking yourself as a business leader or an entrepreneur of how digital will affect you. So where do you start? I think for me, what I always advise my, let's call it customers, how can you start? Is start with the basics, where, when, what, how, to, and dig into exactly what you're trying to do. And the biggest mistake that I've seen people do when it comes to accepting digital technologies is you implement something that's not needed by you. And what I mean is, look at what your customers want and then choose what kind of technology will help you serve your customers best. Don't start with the technology and then force it on your customers. Start with what your customer may want from an experience point of view, a product point of view, a service point of view, and then work backwards into choosing what technologies will help you get to that experience that you want. And I think a mistake I've seen a lot of businesses do, especially I'll tell you in banks, because I'm competing with a lot of banks right now. What they do is they straight away say, okay, bank X is using that technology. Let me go bring in the same technology and implement it on my bank to cater to my customers. And I'll tell you, 60% of the time that fails, because not every single vendor or every single technology will be applicable business by business. Because the one thing that I'll tell you, the technology, when transformation, the biggest blocker, in my opinion, and before being the CEO of Bank I actually worked as an advisor on digital transformation in New York with various companies in agriculture and telecom and retail. And what I found was the biggest blocker to transforming your business digitally is actually the culture and the people. So no matter how good of a technology, if you didn't have the right mindset within your employees, it won't work. And I always say to board members that I advise on what you should do first. I said the technology transformation first, right from the top. And then you need to assemble a management team that will support you in implementing it. And third, you need to create a culture that will support transformation and will also incentivize your employees to change. Because we all know that some of the most difficult things to do in a business is change your employees' behavior. And that's the biggest blocker from what I've seen to digital transformation. You can buy the best technologies out there and put them in your business. But if you don't have, let's say, the right culture and the right support from the most senior level of the organization, these technologies will fail. The last slide in this topic that I'm going to go to is how long does it take you to transform your business? And how can you look at it from a time, let's call it perspective? I start off with these 3 pillars. I say to my clients, start with the brilliant basics. And what that means is just do what you do just much better using technology. Any of you who has a business right now is probably doing one thing really well. So what I tell my clients, think of exactly what you're doing really well and how can you improve these things that you do really well digitally. So start with some basics, like call it the foundation and easy, quick wins. And these are important too for mindset. I think what you sometimes find happen to businesses is they fear that this digital disruption on their technologies will take so long. So start step by step with first, let's say, improving what you do best. Then what you do is, in my opinion, create a foundation for growth. Find what you believe in, like, let's say, a year or 2 years, where you want to be in your business and how can you get there using digital. So this is, let's say, pillar 2. Number 3, cutting new ground. This is, I think, should be, in my opinion, like the last thing people should be worried about when it comes to digital transformation is how can you, as a business, be 2 steps ahead of your competition using technology? That's not an easy question to answer. I ask myself that question all the time. How am I going to be ahead of my competition using technology? So those are the 3 things that when it comes to, let's say, my digital strategy, at least right now, how I think about it. There are more slides here that I'll be happy to share. The last point that I wanted to discuss to open it up for questions is obviously some of the biggest questions that are being asked right now is how this whole COVID-19 situation might affect, let's call it, both technology and different industries. Again, this is, I'd say, just for us to create a discussion, is based on what I've personally seen and read and research. I'd say the short-term, like potential winners in terms of companies that are doing well, obviously, are the medical supply and services, food processing and retail, personal and healthcare, ICT, technology is becoming more and more important right now. E-commerce, for those of you that have businesses that can go digital, that's one. Agriculture, we're seeing huge movements in the stock market when it comes to food supply companies. As you guys know, the food chain, luckily in Bahrain right now, it's not disrupted, but in other countries it is. Potential losers that we see early on this year are automotive space, aviation and maritime, tourism and leisure, education, in the sense that a lot of colleges around the world have shut down and gone online. Financial services are obviously taking a hit. Currently, manufacturing businesses, because manufacturing lines are disrupted. Again, I just say this is just high-level indications early on based on what we've seen in the stock market globally, not Bahrain. The last thing I'd say is there are certain digital behaviors that have been, let's call it, amplified during the COVID-19 situation. To me, I'd say these are things that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years, but I think finally they are, let's say, affecting the average guy on the street, the average Ahmed or Mohammed or Fatma or Peter on the street. So number one, working from home. I'm sure many of you guys on the call have had the pleasure on the understanding of working from home, but what we've seen is this is a new concept for many people. Just to give you guys an example, at least in my business, 95% of my team is working from home, and this has actually been the case, like I said at the beginning of the call, for me. It's something very normal, because again, all our systems are on the Amazon cloud, so people log into it remotely. Obviously, we have all the necessary cybersecurity and information security measures to do that. Teleconferencing, I mean, look at us right now. We're having a Zoom meeting, which is, again, not typical. I think recently this has increased in terms of behavior. I'm guessing a lot of us on the call right now will maybe, once the pandemic is over, will decrease our movement when it comes to meetings and even travel for meetings. Virtual events, I think, are going to increase a lot. I mean, I'm sure some of you have seen it. For example, musical concerts are happening right now online. Friends hang out online. So I think it's going to definitely have an impact on technology. And during this COVID situation has really showed us that some social behaviors of interactions, change, social habits will change, in my opinion. And digital payments, we've seen a tremendous increase in it. I'll tell you, since the beginning of March, at least the use of the Ila Bank platform has increased 3.8 times. And mainly it has increased in, I'm sure some of you will know these terms, Fawri plus Fawatir. So people are using these technologies a lot more. Online education, we've seen a huge boost in online education. Even for me at Ila Bank, I'm seeing my card, the Ila card, being used a lot by students, and let's call them online education websites. Number 7, telemedicine is going to be a big thing. And I think now more than ever, people will probably believe in it more. It's not a new technology per se. It's been going on for a while, but I think since the whole COVID situation globally, people have been forced to probably interact with their physicians for, let's call it the normal stuff, consultations over video conference. Online shopping, obviously not a new trend, but it is huge and it has increased a lot. And then digital entertainment, obviously, I'm sure many of us here have consumed many movies and shows online in the recent month due to the whole lockdown. This is it for me in terms of presentation. I'd now open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you for the talk. Can you just remove your slides? Yeah, I'll put it to everyone. A couple of people were asking some questions from the chat. So in order to make it more organized today, I'll be reading from the chat. So if everyone can send your questions on the chat. Also, I forgot to mention that we had a guest from Jordan, District Governor Shawkat Tudros. I forgot to mention his name earlier. He had to leave early for some engagement. Okay, so Yusuf Fakhro asked the first question. Is about eKYC. How do they authenticate customers in ELA?
Sure. So, Yusuf, thanks for the question. There are two things to note here. Bahrain, from the central bank and the IGA, Information Government Authority, are working on a national eKYC platform. That hasn't gone live. Every business that has a Sigillat, Sigillat account will be able to access. If you have an employee that you want to do, for example, a KYC on, put in his CPR number, and you're going to get all the information that you need. Me at Ella, I have integrated into that eKYC portal. So what happens basically, Yusuf, is you onboard, you take a selfie, a liveliness check, because I need to know that you're alive first when you're onboarding. Then I take your information, I basically to ensure that it's you that was onboarding, to avoid fraud, and that's how it works. So it's basically all digital. There is no, let me show you, there is no manual intervention in the process. And it takes, on average, Yusuf, 5 minutes to do a KYC and open up an account for you.
All right, so another question we have from Farid Bedr. He asks, how can manufacturing be disrupted? Products has to be produced. So the wording there is a bit confusing. How can manufacturing be disrupted? Okay, I think that's his question. How can manufacturing be disrupted?
Sure. I think for me, at least, I'll give you an example of a manufacturing experience I had in the past. I used to work, like I said, previously in the US, and one of my clients was actually Clorox. So what we advised them when it came to basically adopting technology is improving their purchasing and supply chain. So what they used is very manual work, like let's call it 10 years ago, when it came to basically ensuring that their working capital was at the right level. So what they used to see was really high level in terms of current assets and their working capital. So what technology gave them is basically an improvement in their purchasing capability and supply chain when it came to the manufacturing process. So what that led to is a lot less, let's call it expired raw material, and it helped basically cut costs for them. So where technology helped them is improving their supply chain purchasing process. So that's an example of, let's call it the manufacturing process.
Oh, sorry. All right, we have a question. It's 1:15, and I have 6 more questions. So the question, so shall we continue or shall we stop the meeting now? Seema, do you want to say something? Well, no, sure I'm meeting.
We can't hear you, Seema.
Wait, I think that's my fault. Seema, what do you think? Shall we continue with the questions or shall we conclude the meeting? Because we have 5 questions left. I think there's something wrong with your microphone. Anyway, so
Please
I'll
continue.
take that. I saw 1 thumbs up, so I'll take a couple more questions.
Yeah.
The next question is from Adnan. If I can just find this question, I saw it here earlier. Here it is. How does ELA Bank measure its success? What are their KPIs?
Sure. So thanks to the KPI is you have different KPIs when it comes to different parts in your journey. Right now, I'm 4 months old. I only launched in November, so the KPIs that I've set for myself and my team are mainly 3, to be honest with you, to make it easy for us. First, number of customers this year that we want to get in terms of Bahrain. 2, the funding ratios for every customer account. So on average, I'm looking to say that I want my customers to have a 70% active and funding ratio. And number 3 is what they call net promoter score. So we've created several customer satisfaction criteria that we usually send to our customers that have been with us for after 4 months or 3 months. So actually, we've just started deploying these questionnaires online to understand better their customer experience. Because to me right now, what I need to do is establish myself in Bahrain, create brand awareness, create a right amount of size for me to ensure that I'm stable early on in my journey from a funding point of view. And number 3, I need to ensure early on in my journey that the customer experience is quite important. 6 months, if you come to me in 6 months, my KPI will be a bit different because what I need to do based on the KPIs that I have developed with the board is achieve certain metrics into deployment into Egypt and Jordan. So again, these are my early on KPIs right now, and they're going to change as the journey goes on because I'm a startup right now.
Okay, so another question. We have a question from Khalid Turk. He asks, how does it differ from PayPal and other online payment systems? Is it only for Bahrain at this time? How does it compare to benefit payments?
Sure. So what it caters to right now, ELA, is basically in terms of the minimum viable product that we launch with, it caters to only Bahrain. And what it caters, basically the only right now differentiator that I have in terms of the market is basically a multi-currency account right at your mobile, 5 minutes into your onboarding. So you can be in your office, or let's say you're traveling, for example. You're in the airport and you, for some reason, don't want to exchange your currency into pounds and euros, etc. What you can do is from the airport, open up an ELA account. Then what you're going to have is a GBP, USD, Euro account, all in your mobile and in your card or in your phone. And what you can do then is fund the account from your mobile and immediately transact. Let's say I'm in the airport right now, I already have an ELA account. I can say, okay, on this trip, I'm going to, let's say, the UAE. I go to my app and I can immediately from the app move money to euros, UAE, USD. And what I offer my clients right now is 0 fees. I do not charge my clients to do these exchange rate transactions. So you obviously pay an exchange rate. My exchange rates are quite competitive compared to other banks. I don't charge you any fees. I don't take a fee to service you. And then the last thing that differentiates me too is when you go to London and let's say pay for a cup of coffee £2, you're gonna get £2 hit on your account. An extra fee for using a Bahraini card in London, for example. When it comes to BenefitPay, the differentiator between me and BenefitPay is a payments platform. It allows you to interact between different bank accounts and send money. They do not give you a banking account or a multi-currency account like I do. So that's the biggest one. The only advantage, I admit, that BenefitPay has over all banking apps in Bahrain is the ability to send your money using mobile number. That's a big differentiator that they have.
Okay. I think we'll take 2 more questions because it's almost 1:30. So we'll have one question from Hassan Mansour. He asks, when would ELA expand into lending business since it's the main income stream for any retail bank?
Sure. We're actually launching our first asset product, inshallah. Inshallah, what we're working on is in September. We're going to be focusing on first on small loans, credit cards to individuals. And then what we want to do is also focus on SMEs in Bahrain. So we're going to start off with SMEs and credit cards in September, inshallah. Hopefully, if the situation doesn't get worse, as you know, the credit market is deteriorating continuously with what's going on. The target is September. And then next year, in June, we're releasing our first retail product catered to businesses. So what we're going to have is basically ELA 2.0 next year in June in 2021, which is catered towards businesses and corporations.
Okay, we'll have one more question from past President Osama Ain. What's your vision as a bank?
Well, to me, as a let's call it a young Bahraini, the main vision and the dream that I have is, to be honest with you, is really creating a national digital champion that is born in Bahrain and hopefully taken across the region. So, for example, if many of us on this call, if we talk about Kareem, all of us will know that Kareem was born in Dubai. If we talk about Soog or Noon, many of us will say it was born in Dubai. My vision, to be honest, is one day that people all over the region will say, Ella affected my life and went into all the region and was born in Bahrain by Bahrainis.
Okay, I think that went very well. I mean, there were some technical difficulties here and there, but we got there at the end. Thank you very much. Let's